All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Cross Commission podcast. Now with a countdown, um, clock and banners and you know cool new technology and everything, which is uh, not not thanks to us. It's all thanks to the good people at StreamYard, uh, which we have recently discovered, and you know you know God bless the Skype for its many years of good service to us. Um, but this is much more handy dandy and useful. Um, so it's like doing those lives on Skype was like I feel like trying to like fly a plane.
It was so professional. I love the countdown. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
It was like it was like looking at this and then like like the camera would like change sometimes. So, like you try to drag it over. I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna try like like a million miles per hour.
It's sometimes you have a browser on top of the stream, you're looking at something, you'll see like the audio is fine, but the video will all of a sudden like catch up. You just see the movie really fast.
100%.
Definitely much cleaner.
Yes, much cleaner. And there's but we're happy to be back. We've got a loose rundown tonight. Some news, some schedules, but if you guys who are with us got any questions for us, got any thoughts, drop them in the chat, ask questions, feel free. We will answer, so this isn't a super intensive, we don't have like a bunch of topics that I've into, but we got a couple that we're gonna address. Safe has some notes prepared.
Research.
He's got research. So we've got research. We've got we've got some topics. I think the first one we'll dive into is right off the bat. From this just dropped a couple of I won't say what, like hour or two ago. As Hobart released their schedule for 2025, and of course I messed that up. Not scheduled to play in 2024. Let me change that. Hughes and Hobart, as Hobart released their schedule. Looks like it appears that Syracuse and Hobart are not going to be playing in 2025. This is pretty significant, as Syracuse and Hobart, aside from 2021, which was the COVID, everybody had a different sort of schedule and testing season. Hobart that year played an all NEC schedule. So the game went on pause for that year. But other than that, Syracuse and Hobart have played every year since 1962. And this is a rivalry it's the third oldest rivalry in the sport.
1960.
60, I think. What is 60 or 60?
1916 first game at Cuse.
1960, is it?
They won. All right, I'm just going off of the history. When you can click the history link I'm on the 2024 schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing, maybe they didn't actually consider me. I don't know, but Hobart won the first three. 9-1, 1960. They played again in May of that year. 14-0, they beat Cuse, and then played them in Geneva. Won the 6-1, and then Cuse went on almost like a 20-year streak with only one loss.
Yeah, and it goes back. I mean, further than that. I mean, like even in the the NCAA, and the first meeting, I think between these two, I guess any of the lacrosse programs, period, considered to be the first lacrosse game in Syracuse program history is April 29th, 1916 against Hobart. It's so it's again it's the third oldest rivalry in um, college lacrosse. Third oldest series of college lacrosse history. Men's college lacrosse history behind Cornell and Hobart, and Maryland and Johns Hopkins. And it's the number of sort of different events and changes in the sport that this rivalry has kind of, I guess you could say, like endured is significant. Hobart was has been played at like all three different levels. They were D2 for a couple years there. They were D3 for obviously a prolonged period of time when they had the significant dynasty at the D3 level, and they played the rivalries with Cornell and Syracuse continued for a long period of time during those years. And the impetus for Hobart moving up from D3 to D1 was really to continue playing Syracuse and Cornell, because it was in I think 1994, when they could no longer schedule in between the different divisions. That decision was made. Even Hobart didn't have scholarships. But they were they continued to play at that level for the purpose of playing the playing the orange and the big red. And so this one is off the schedule. It appears they will be playing Cornell February 25th, 5 p.m. In Geneva. So that game is still on the schedule. They're at Lemoyne this year. Hobart is, but no game against Syracuse. This obviously, it's kind of, the Hobart schedule dropped, very recently. So, reason behind this, what is the kind of cause? No, don't know. Hope to find out. But Safe, kind of, what's your early sort of thoughts on this?
Kind of thinking about North Carolina only with 13 scheduled games and don't have the total number of like the last few years, but that feels less than their normal. I think it was 14 games last year. They're 7-7. They didn't make the AC, and it was 7-7 the year prior, and probably 7-7 the year prior. That's one less game. Only reason I mention is like I wonder if maybe Cuse kind of joke around like this, the Notre Dame like formula, just schedule as minimum games really as needed, pack it up with like quality opponents, a couple of games just to make sure no real threat of a couple of games against maybe lower tier opponents, so that lessens the threat of falling below 500. You don't want to have only a top 20 schedule and then you may not give you 500 at the end. So I wonder. We'll know when Q sends out releases their schedule. Maybe there's one less game, and because of the difficulty in schedule, we kind of noted that the last time you and Ryan were all together, that referenced that Princeton article where they were talking about like the changes in the college landscape has made it difficult for teams to schedule, even teams like Princeton. They kind of focus a little bit on the Princeton women's lacrosse team. So I just wonder, again, it's not like the ACC merged or anything like that, or like Hobart is in a conference with 10 conference mates. They're the A10. There should be a lot of flexibility there to have a schedule, but maybe Cuse is the one that kind of was like, oh, if we can play, this is a window, and it just happened to be a window that Hobart couldn't play, and that's what it is. But that's what I really would like to see when Cuse releases there. It's just the total number of games get reduced, and if that was part of the reason why Hobart wasn't able to fit Syracuse, or Syracuse wasn't able to fit Hobart into the schedule. It's a shame. I mean, I'm not callous about like, just a casualty of the modern day college landscape.
Yeah.
But also, Cuse has Final Four like sites, and maybe the RPI, the potential of Hobart not being that great of a win and more of a of risk. I mean, I don't foresee Syracuse losing to Hobart. I mean, they beat them. What they beat them last year? I think 14-1 or
13-7.
13-7. So I mean, probably be a similar.
Would have been at home this year.
Yeah. So yeah, so again, I don't foresee Syracuse losing to Hobart. You know, I'm not thinking they were like this. Is not like like a Richmond when they were still on the come up. Like there's actually a potential loss there by playing a team that's a lower tier. But it's tough for the Hobart fans. I'm sure Syracuse fans, Ryan, Chris, our beloved friends, they're definitely bummed out about it. I do wonder how much of the casual or not fervent fans of the lacrosse team will mind that Hobart's not there if they replace them with like kind of a more marquee team at home. So yeah, it's tough. This Princeton, Hopkins haven't played for a minute. I mean, Hopkins, Maryland will never not play. Hopkins literally went to the Big Ten just to make sure we played Maryland. But there are rivalries that do take a hiatus. Hopkins, Loyola didn't play for a little bit. They're back on the schedule as of late.
Hopkins Navy.
Those are the other ones who's going to go. There's another probably equal, if not more, passionate rivalry between the two fan bases as compared to Hobart and Cuse. They took a break. So, it's Syracuse and Princeton. I mean, they brought it back one year, but, that's a game that everybody would love to be played on a year basis. It just, that's just kind of not maybe feasible in 2025 to play every single one of your rival and your conference schedule, in the allotted amount of games. If the NCAA, increases the amount of games, teams or events, I think they refer to them, that they can play. Start the season a little earlier. I know that's not maybe something you would like to hear, Jake, but that's
where you want to go.
That's got
Hopkins is a Denver February
championship game, and then the Saturday before that is the first lacrosse game of the season. But it's kind of to say is just like it moved the season a little bit further back, and increase games. Maybe that's it. But again, these are children. It's kind of difficult to like say, hey, yeah, we want you to play 18 Division I lacrosse games, and then the potential conference tournament and the potential NCAA tournament. So this kind of seems a lot to ask. But with the current framework that we have and the amount of time teams can schedule, and the reluctance for a lot of teams to schedule midweek games, unless they've kind of really won it, you're going to see more rivalry casualties like this.
And that's interesting, and that's kind of like what thinking through like what's the reasoning, but like, or what's the potential cause behind this. This has been one that has been played on a midweek before. Like this has bounced around the schedule a lot. This game is played the last couple of years. This is Syracuse's last midweek game before, or last conference game, last non-conference game before ACC play. Pardon me. As we get another guest here. Oh, he's ready to go. he's ready.
They ruined my birthday.
Ryan literally looks like he just got home. Like he just sat down.
Yes, it pretty much is the case. Yes,
throws the lanyard off, puts the
waiting on my
on.
sister to get home to have birthday cake.
He's locked.
Oh wait, is it your birthday, Ryan?
Yes, it is.
Hey, happy birthday!
Thank you.
God.
So I'm hopping on for a few minutes because, bad enough that Cornell and Syracuse are playing on Long Island. The only acceptable neutral site for Cornell Syracuse would be Cortland State because it's in between Syracuse and Ithaca. But now they're just going hog wild and having it on Long Island. Yes, I get that there's a ton of Long Island alums for both schools. But come on. It's the Battle of Central New York.
Right now.
What's up?
I was going to say, we have one on this podcast right now, an alum in Long Island.
Yes. And even if I wasn't going down to Washington, D.C. that weekend, I would still, on principle, boycott going to that game. wherever the hell it is. If it's at LIU, if it's at Adelphi, if it's at Hofstra, if it's at some high school, if it's at St. Anthony's or Chaminade.
City Field.
Out of principle. Yeah, City Field.
Ryan's backyard, his own backyard.
My own backyard. I don't know. My dad can watch
it. Car, it drives off.
It's the Battle of Central New York. But now you're telling me the only trophy game Syracuse Athletics plays for. Again, keep in mind, Syracuse football does not have a trophy game. Syracuse Georgetown does not have a trophy in basketball. There's no trophy games in women's lax or women's basketball. Nothing in field hockey. This is the only trophy game in all of Syracuse athletics. They don't have one for Hopkins. They don't have one for Virginia. They don't have one for Cornell. They don't have anything for Colgate. They don't have the Wegmans Central New York Challenge with Colgate or Cornell. They don't have the Salt City Snowball with Lemoyne yet. Though I would like to see.
Coming
yeah,
soon.
I would like to. Yeah, if they should have something with Lemoyne, I think, but for the Genesee Street Derby. But this is the maddening thing about Syracuse lacrosse the past couple of years with scheduling. I get that they're probably going to have a stacked schedule, but it's not like the year where, we're playing Princeton this year, so we don't really have any way to work in Cornell. It's Hobart. You play on a Tuesday night. It's not going to do anything to your RPI because, it's Hobart. It's not like you're trying to fit in a team with a high RPI. And this is this rivalry that has been played for over 100 years. Has not mattered what division Hobart's been in. And it's the game for Hobart. It means something. We'll have to see when Syracuse releases their schedule at 4:55 on December 23rd. But I don't get it. Your two local rivals are Hobart and Cornell. You're not playing one of them and the other you're sending 250 miles away. I don't get it. Why are they completely spitting in the face of tradition? So we get another high RPI game. Great. We're in the ACC. We're going to be preseason top 5. You're going to be top 5 if you do well anyway. I don't get it.
Yeah, again, it's hard, it's hard. Again, we don't know what what's the reason, what's the cause, a lot of this stuff often comes down to, like Safe said, it's hard to schedule. Teams couldn't come to a date, couldn't come to an agreement. It's hard to feel, again, like Ryan said, it's hard to, look, this game matters a lot to Hobart. It's the biggest game on their schedule. It's hard to imagine Hobart, not doing whatever they could to play in this game. And that's not me saying that I'm, ascribing that Syracuse decided that they didn't want to play in the game. But, at the end of I always with scheduling, teams just make different judgments as to what, matters. I do think, Safe, your point about the number of games could certainly be a factor here. Syracuse, the last 2 years, has played 15 games in the regular season. They played 15 games in the prior to any ACC tournament. It was 15 in 2023. It was 15 in 2024, and then they played the ACC tournament, the semifinal against Duke, in Charlotte.
And in our chat, Adam has said, with some reverse engineering of the schedule, Cuse has added Jacksonville and Harvard, and they may have to deal with, they may have a back end of a series with Utah. So I don't know if that might play a role. But I don't know, because, again, Jacksonville would probably be an opener. And I guess the Harvard game could screw up things a bit. It's a little bit deeper into February. But I don't know. The game's usually played on a Tuesday night in April, and I feel that's really flexible. Unless, I don't know, unless they're going to shoehorn another game in the middle of ACC play. I mean, Cornell's usually a midweek game, and that's going to be on a Saturday. So, I don't know. Are they going to have to swing the back end of that series with Utah if they have to go out to Salt Lake City? Do they still owe Princeton a game at the Dome for the game 2 years ago? I don't know. There's a lot going. Yeah, there's a lot of. I don't know what's being shoehorned in.
Princeton's schedule's out.
And, it is out. I didn't know that.
It's nice. I mean, the first early.
Yeah, I saw the Penn State game.
Penn State, Maryland, North Carolina, Duke.
Oh, wow. Penn State.
Yeah.
Wow, that's is Penn State schedule? Penn State schedule's out, is it?
Penn State schedule's out. Yeah, a lot of the Big Ten schools have come out. I know we're getting sidetracked here, but yeah, Princeton, Penn State, February 15th.
It's a good game. Penn State's needed to kind of beef up. Oh, Penn State dropped their schedule yesterday.
Yeah, Penn State did it yesterday. Yeah.
Schedule.
Yeah, a lot of teams have been dropping it, except for Syracuse and Maryland, because it's a race to see who's out the door last before Christmas.
So Penn State is basically, Penn State, played the Ivy, just been their thing. All
of Princeton, Yale, and Cornell on their non-con schedule, plus Navy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think they've obviously previously they've played Yale and Cornell a bunch. Penn State has in the past. Now they've got Princeton. I guess Princeton is taking are they playing Penn still, or?
They're not playing Penn.
So Princeton's taking the place of Penn.
They got Villanova and Robert Morris as their other two Pennsylvania matchups.
Yeah. The Nova one's kind of a, but that's cool. Me and Safe were talking about it. Incredible how the Carolina schools roped Princeton into going down there again.
and Penn, they're doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah, they got into going down. Yeah, there again, but so
yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, we gotta have to see what Utah's hasn't come out yet. Right?
I don't think so.
Because that's the question: is Syracuse have to make a trip out west?
Utah, yes. Utah's not out. They just have the fall. They just have the fall ball out.
So anyway, I got to cut my time a little bit short here. That's why I'm not joining the boys tonight because I got cake guns.
Before you leave, Ryan, who would you rather Syracuse play, Princeton or Hobart? Your Gate calls you, Mr. McDonald. I need your counsel. I don't want the fans
I would
to
say
get mad at me. Who do I pick here?
I would take a look and see how many big time opponents they already have before determining whether to put Princeton in. But I think, historically speaking, as much as the Syracuse-Princeton rivalry is big, you go with the regional rival with Hobart. That's why it was kind of melancholy when, they finally added Princeton to the schedule in 2023, but it was at the expense of Cornell. And it's like, well, wait a second here. Syracuse-Cornell is a thing. Like, I think the Syracuse-Hobart game regionally means something. And I think you guys touched upon that in Hobart's case. And again, it's the only trophy game for the entire athletics department for Syracuse. So I think I are on the side of regional rivals. And as much as I stand for Syracuse-Princeton, that's a rivalry that's 30 years old. Hobart is over 100 years old. You go with the Hobart rivalry.
That's why you're a man of the people, right?
Yes.
But
yes, I'm racking up the Festivus complaints at this point between losing Hobart and having Cornell on the island. We had Hopkins at a neutral site last year.
Can
They're just
Syracuse
losing the recipes.
Can Syracuse Hawkins ever commit to like a basic like just home like every just a simple like straight off and on 1 year at one spot, 1 year at the other.
They usually did.
I mean,
I don't know what the hell happened.
There's been like 10 years since there was 1 year where like they played 2 straight at like Homewood or something.
Yeah.
So then they gave it back and played 2 at the Dome. Now they've played,
Charlotte.
Now they played in Charlotte. Like,
it used to be simple. It used to be St. Patrick's Day weekend, same weekend as the first round of the NCAA tournament. I guess that's part of it is because that would screw over the women's team, the Syracuse women's team, where they couldn't use the Dome because of having to play Hopkins. So I guess they moved it a week forward to conference championship week in college basketball. Plus, I feel like Syracuse fans make the transition from basketball to lacrosse around the week of the Hopkins game. So they moved it up a bit, but yeah, just go back to the recipes. Doesn't need to be that hard. Hopkins, Syracuse, St. Patrick's Day weekend, alternate home and away. You play Hobart every year. You play Cornell every year. And you make room for Princeton. And ACC scheduling be damned. Virginia's last week of February or first week of March. Virginia game should not be in April. It's loss of sauce in April.
Yeah, I think you unfortunately lost the battle on that one when you
yes
joined this thing called a conference.
Yes.
I mean, I guess they did keep it alive there for a minute with the start at the beginning, but that's when the as Safe would say, the ACC was not trying to bother with the pretense of being a loose cartel of
a loose and cartel of like-minded lacrosse teams.
Yeah. Now they're doing the tournament again and everything. So
yeah. All right. Well, Godspeed, guys. It looks like we got a good thing going with this StreamYard technology.
Yeah.
So I hope the fans at home are enjoying it too. I see Edwin in the chat as well. That he's pumped to see us here.
Thanks, sir.
Excited for the season of the pods this year. So thanks, Edwin. Glad you're joining us this evening. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun with this new format with the StreamYard. So we got a lot of fun things ahead on the technical end for our live streams too, that I think you guys are in for a treat this season. So Godspeed to you guys. I'll check you guys out later.
Ryan, do I need to kick you out? Do I need to kick you out, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess just in case, so that way it doesn't end the whole thing if I leave the studio. So
sounds good.
See you guys later.
Happy birthday, bro.
Happy birthday.
That kind of runs right into the college football thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jake. Is like full disclosure, I got a little bit of this from Simmons' pod with Chuck Klosterman. I don't listen as religious as you, but I do like Klosterman and Bill when they talk. But Klosterman's a huge college football fan, much more so than the NFL. And he, a couple of maybe like too emotive, but like he kind of admitted that he thinks that he is wrong about everything when it comes to college football, because he's like, kind of grown up on the reason it's so special is the rivalries, the pageantry, these kind of like idiosyncratic rivalries between like teams that you would never really even like Eugene, Oregon, you people like locations like you wouldn't go to, you get to see the people and stuff like that. And I think that's accurate for sure. But with the NIL and the transfer portal, like I think there were a lot of predictions that, college football would get like damaged, or be like the product would, the fans would reject the product a little bit. And I think like ratings are higher than ever. And it's not just like sports betting. I was doing a little bit of reading beforehand, and I forget the guy who tweeted this, but it was from a Stuart Mindell article in the New York Times, where it's like college football is from 2023. You probably already know it. Where it's like college football is the hottest thing on the market right now. And in the article, they noted that football last year was up 12% and up 28% in ratings than they were 5 years ago. And there people attributed that to maybe the increase in gambling and causing more people to be like, but as states have increased gambling, the NFL hasn't increased it. Now, maybe you could say the NFL is kind of like too hard keep increasing at 10 to 12% because it's already the most
And
popular.
they keep going up too, but I mean, granted, the NFL thing is, and you know, I always make this point with the NFL is like just in the last 3 to 4 years, they finally were able to like count all the like bars and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a big. I'm not denying. You know, the NFL's. You know, I don't think the NFL's popularity. I don't think the NFL's popularity has diminished by any means. Has it gained in the last 10 years? Maybe, I don't know. I think people said the last big NFL gain in popularity was when they got the Hispanic American when they made inroads in that community and the
how many times have I said Goodell should be fired for not having a team in Mexico City by now? Like it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, like 15, 20 years, yeah. But go ahead. Yeah,
many points is like essentially everything that we've always thought of college football has just been torn asunder. You know.
Oh, 100%.
And for the players deserve it as well. You know, the freedom of being able to move, being able to earn money on your likeness if you're producing billions for this whole like racket. But I guess the point was just like the fans almost don't care, and it's just like it's more popular. Maybe the top 60 teams, the fans of those top 60 teams, they don't particularly care. But it does seem like it's people really kind of rooting for the jersey or the laundry the entire time, and
of course
they don't care if like a kid just he didn't need to be a freshman in the freshman quad like you were, and with the team for 3 years. He could come for 1 year, drop in, and you're more than fine dropping another $100 on that jersey. If he's going to get you to a bowl game.
I think that's always been true. I don't think that's that part of it's always been I think that part is definitely the case. I think the college football thing is a very tricky thing. It's hard to gauge any whether this has been successful or not. In the short term, I think it was always going to be successful because you get the last couple of years of like the old system, like the matchups have gotten very repetitive. You had the same teams over and over. With this and with like now, I mean, just sort of naturally you have like changes in the sport. Like Nick Saban retires, Texas is kind of back on the scene again. Ohio State's kind of dipped a little bit. So you've got some you have like had some kind of organic changes, I think, that have gotten people a little more intrigued. Additionally, the ratings are, what's going to get people like, engaged is a twofold. From a ratings perspective, it's these matchups between big schools. And in the short term, that was always like, that's going to be successful. You get Texas versus Georgia, or Texas versus Alabama, or Ohio State versus Oregon. I mean, if USC could be good, USC versus Michigan, Ohio State, USC versus Penn State, yada, yada. That's going to be big in like the short term. Like that's going to provide short term, intrigue, like a boost. Does that hold up long term? I don't know. Does that like are people still into it long term when, the rivalries aren't there potentially as much, and it's the kind of nature of like the Big Ten isn't the same as it was, and the SEC isn't the same as it was, and the ACC, so on and so forth, and you're a Stanford and Cal, and you're playing Miami every year, and you're playing these teams, or you're Oregon. Look, it always matters no one really minds when you're good, but maybe when you're not so good, and you don't have to, when you're playing, you're not playing, you're kind of, because look, as you saw like Michigan this weekend, look, there's nothing better when you're not good than beating your rival.
Oh, God, absolutely.
Like when you're not good and you're playing teams you don't really care about, that's kind of, and then on the flip side, like also, I think, it came at a good time of like, college football had a problem of like a lot of its biggest games were continually being played at the beginning of the season in kind of these, NFL stadiums, neutral sites. Now it's getting big games on campus because like these super leagues, like Ohio State, Oregon's played in Eugene, Texas and Georgia was played in Austin, I think. Yeah, I think so. So in the short, like even I said, like in the short term at the beginning of the season, I thought it was, it was hard not to kind of get like, oh man, big game, that's fun. Another big game, like that's fun. I thought that by the end of the season, it got kind of tricky because it's like, it's hard to keep up with all of it. It's like, I don't like, there's like, it's kind of like we talk about like when we get to like March, end of the season with like tiebreakers and stuff. It's like, I don't freaking know in these 16 team leagues who the top two teams, like, all these scenarios. And like, does it really matter? Like the top two teams are going to, in most of these leagues are going to like, Ohio State and Penn State are going, or Oregon and Penn State are going to the playoff anyway. So in the short term, I think, yeah, it was always going to be successful. And I think it's definitely been a hit. Especially this year because it's like wide open a little bit to a degree. Will it stay that way long term? I think we'll probably have to wait and see a little bit. I think, it's hard to say. Right now, yeah, I think it's been, kind of fairly, pretty successful.
I'm a little more bullish, I guess, just because, like, I think, especially in America, like, we love to see the best play the best. And as I think it's almost inevitable now, like, it would be like a 50, 60 team super conference or like maybe separation, or maybe they'll still have the conferences, but they'll just be college football.
I mean, that would be good. I mean, they need to get to that. Like, that needs to happen. Like,
yeah. And I think as the pool of available big time college football teams consolidates, if they're, I think at the high school level, football is going down, but I think you'll still have more high school players looking to play at the college level. And if, at previous where you would maybe have, a large percentage of the best players at the, the top. So you occasionally, have like stars or All-Americans, really good players at different teams with varying numbers. And as they just kind of get consolidated more and more, I think like the level of play may increase, and people will just like it more just because it's like now we got all the best players in just these 5 dozen teams, and it's just, it is a minor league football. But I think with the added aspect of like, I think there is still like name recognition with the schools. That's why I think like it may end up like I don't have any tie to USC at all. I don't know anything, but I just like watching their game, and like it's always like such a big time atmosphere. Like I'm over here in Jersey, and I became a USC fan. Or as much as you can be without watching every game. They're on TV, especially even now. Like I find myself watching more college football in the last 3 years than I have probably the 10 years prior.
If you're a casual fan, absolutely, it's going to be. It's like it will attract you because you see more of the big games. That's definitely the case. If you're a fan of a team, and that's being kind of impacted by this, that's the different kind of question. Is if you are a fan of Washington State or Oregon State, how do you feel?
I'm just about to say those two schools. Yeah.
Even if you're a fan of like Maryland or Rutgers, like Maryland, I think those are two good examples. Like, because I think those are two programs that like really like invested a lot in their program, and like worked really hard. Like Maryland invested a lot in facilities and stuff like that over the last couple of years. And I remember like Mike Loxley talked about, he's like, yeah, we put a lot in like facilities and everything, and like NIL hit at the exact time. He's like, yeah, no one cares about that anymore. Like it doesn't matter. Like, great, man, you got like nice locker room and everything, and like workout room. It's like cool. Now it's NIL and everything. It's like Maryland ain't competing in that regard. And so like in those programs, then look, Maryland Rutgers are in a weird spot, because like before, like with the league and division they were in wasn't, they were always.
It just takes one alum that gives a shit to change. I mean, that the Michigan football story where Ellison and his wife,
talk to me, safe.
Oh yeah, no, Ellison, my bad. I didn't mean to bring that up like for assault, but I just meant like that just changed my.
Yeah,
Kevin Plank could one day just be like, "I want the best." Guy.
Well, he could, but I mean, yeah. I mean, Maryland fans have been saying that for like 20 years.
I hear you. I need Bloomberg to care. just jump in. But yeah, as I just figured, like, like Joseph Tsai, like shout out to him. Like he wanted to be a dude, in this space, and he became a dude in this. Now he's got a pro teams, and he's Yale's big, big daddy booster. So like, there's probably a lot of other alums who maybe have a lot of money and just want to like, this seems like fun, and $10 million isn't anything to that. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a whole new like era, and I think where a lot of people thought, not you, I'm not speaking for you, but like I know like some writers are like, oh, the tradition and stuff like that. But I was like, I think fans like this stuff, the transfer stuff, the talking stuff. Like I think of it like I liken it to the NBA. Like I think the NBA offseason is probably more popular than NBA regular season. NBA playoffs
is, but I don't think that's been good for the NBA.
no, it's not. But I think there's other factors in that. But I think like the transferring, the moving around, the constant like building up and tearing down a program, like it. I think it does breed a level of excitement that, as you noted, like that decade in the late 2010s, where the game was kind of going. So Alabama, Clemson 3 times out of 4 years in the championship game. Repeated North Conference champions. It gets boring, and like this, upends the established order. And
I mean, it can. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's the answer is, how does it look if it can be regulated? Because right now it's like it's just I mean, it's not. And
just like those territories in America before they became states.
Exactly. So it's like, like Michigan, with like, Larry Ellison, Larry Ellison's finding out that Larry Ellison didn't even go to Michigan was like, just like that was like,
is that his wife or I mean, it doesn't matter.
Girlfriend or something. It was like went to school with Dave Portnoy. Like that like radicalized me. Like I was like, I'm like, he didn't even go to school there. Like, Jesus.
You're about to put the black mask and the black flag up. Just,
like, make it stop. But like, because right now it's like you go look at the recruiting rankings and it's like, I mean, like Oregon, I guess. I mean, but even then, like, I mean, Oregon was like a top school, like before this. But like, look, you look at the top schools. It's like Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia. It's like, has it really changed? Not really. So it's like
just an infusion of new blue bloods. Teams that just hadn't been there for a bit now.
So it's like if you can regulate it a little bit, then maybe, because maybe if it's if there's a cap of some something or another, maybe it can like like you said, one school can maybe get a big donor who can kind of contribute to that, and then it's like their impact can be felt. Like Kevin Plank could decide, oh, awesome, I want to spend, but it's like at a certain point, Kevin Plank can be like, I'm out, or like I'm going up to this point. Texas has got like, Texas might not have someone Kevin Plank, but they got 10 dudes who are all going to
oil man, yeah,
like they got 10 dudes who are going to be willing to spend,
So that's the thing. I don't know if you maybe we saw a similar YouTube where there was a guy who likened what's happening in college football now to the NFL in this early part where like there was a lot of teams that collapsed, the league wasn't strong. You had like a small group of really top teams and everybody, and then they almost had to go against their own interests, like the Giants and the major teams for the good of the league. And they implemented the reverse draft, the salary cap. Is kind of a very socialistic endeavor within the NFL. They're 100% capitalist when it comes to the fans, and for sure we got to pay for everything. But like they take care of the whole, and maybe I think that will happen after the separation. I think I don't know where college football is going. Maybe
revenue sharing's coming into effect next year, I think. Which of course that's the thing is like that's where it feels like how much revenue the revenue sharing feels like it's more pronounced probably when it's like when they get the separation, everything like that. But
that's when they'll okay, we're here the 50, we're gonna just do our own thing with this thing here. You guys can do whatever you want with your NCAA. We're gonna have our own league. Then there'll be like gentlemen, and then they're gonna discuss it like diplomats and like figure out like an order. And I could see like a salary cap how much money you could give a total team. In like your collective money. Maybe they can get more money on their own because Subway or Nike wants to put them on a commercial or the car dealership in town. But like the amount of money your collective can actually go out and pay, I could definitely see a cap. And then that would be good, I think, as you said, just to keep the health of, maybe you want to just keep most of the money with like DC, but like those 60 teams is going to be in their benefit to like make sure this works so that like everybody's has somewhat of a shot if they're going to go that way. But I think we're in a transformative time for everything, really. It just seems like we're in unprecedented times, every week. But especially in college football or college sports, like I just feels like just an absolute paradigm shift, and we're in it, like as history's like happening, like when people look back in 20, 30 years when things are kind of settled, they're going to be like, these 10 years in the 2020s was like a really transformative time for college sports. And that's what I was wondering. I was like, how that's going to affect lacrosse, just if it goes to just like, hey, we're just going to do this just for football. And then the NCAA paradigm continues for all the other sports, maybe, but I don't even know.
I think that's what everyone's waiting on, is like, what is that? That's, until then it's kind of like in stasis, like that's kind of what everyone's, the ACC, kind of like the realignment's kind of like ceased for a little bit, like a couple of years ago, it looked like it was just nonstop and it's kind of slowed down, but it's, it's like, what does it look like if it, goes into one big, super league or two super, I think that's kind of what everyone's sort of, I think waiting on is just how do things realign again if, things separate out from that, and can things coalesce back to something normal if it's, sort of, a basketball on down thing at a, smaller level. A couple kind of schedule thoughts before we keep him moving. Princeton. They've got a heavy hitting start to the year.
You know where I'm going to be February 22nd, Jake.
Indeed. Can they? I'll never forget that. So what they haven't led Maryland in like, it's just it's something in insane now. Like it's like years at this point. And they get them back at home this time. But Penn State February 15th, Maryland the 22nd. They get UNC. The Tigers are. This is and I think this is an interesting kind of, I guess, maybe theme, or I guess kind of, look at it with some of these team schedules. This is a we think we're, Final Four team schedule. I mean, Princeton always plays a tough schedule, but this is like, out of the like you could be. They play Penn Maryland. It's conceivably possible they don't play a team that's outside the top 20 until March 29th.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the worst team they play in the first month and a half of the season is Rutgers, and like Rutgers gets off to a good start. Rutgers will easily be in the top 20. Like Maryland, Penn State, Duke, North Carolina will definitely be in the top 20. That's 4 teams right there. Cornell will definitely be in the top 5. Harvard might be. So that's like you got, but then you got Dartmouth, Lehigh, tournament team. Princeton plays Penn State, Maryland, Duke. That's 3. Lehigh's 4. 4 tournament teams, but even just outside of tournament teams, they got Cornell, Carolina, Yale, Penn. That's nuts. I mean, it's a stacked. And then also, I think we talked about this in the last show, but another team with in the Ivy with just a whale of a schedule is Penn again, but somehow feels even like Penn plays Georgetown, UNC, Cornell, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Notre Dame. I mean, the worst team Penn plays is Albany. I mean, I guess maybe Brown. I mean, you expect Brown to probably be improved with John Torpy. So these Ivy teams, I mean, these schedules Ivy League teams are playing are like they're stiff, man, and it's set up where I'll say this is like it's set up where if they win some of these games, I mean, we have this conversation every year, but it's like if they win some of with how tough these how Princeton's schedule, Penn is scheduled, Yale plays Denver out of the league, with how these teams have scheduled, I'm just trying to look at some other teams here if I can find them. Don't know much about Harvard so far, but like with how they've scheduled, some of these teams have scheduled. Like if they win these games out of the league, I mean,
2022 again.
It's something along those lines. Like because like Princeton is like if you're Princeton, if you go. I mean, look, you never know, but you could go, I don't know, 3-3, and you're in like those first 6 games: Princeton, Maryland, Duke, UNC, Rutgers. I mean, that's your non-con. Those 5. You go 2-3. I mean, pick the right 2. That might be enough. 3-2 certainly. You're like, that's good. We're good. I mean, that's a whale. It's a whale of a schedule out of the gate. And there's just no, they got Vermont. They're able to there's very little fat on that schedule at all. Almost none, really. I mean, if Vermont's the worst, I mean, Vermont, Dartmouth, worst team game. We'll see how Brown is. Last year that was obviously, a drag. I think didn't Princeton lose to Brown last year? I think they did. But yeah, some of these schedules, those Ivy schedules are stiff. And then the second one, I think, that certainly is a step up is North Carolina. Carolina's adds Michigan. That's February 8th. And just none of the last year North Carolina on the schedule, they had Mercer, they had Fairfield, Wagner. You don't see those on the schedule this year for North Carolina. This year, the Tar Heels they start with Michigan. They're at start with Michigan at home to Stony Brook, home away from home at Homewood, which potentially we can transition to Safe's notes that he's brought to the program. They have they've got Princeton and Penn both coming to Chapel Hill. Carolina plays one game away from home through March 16th, and it's at a stadium that they have not lost at since 2006.
It's literally their home away from home.
So, but I mean, nonetheless, like it is a tough. I mean, like the games are Michigan, Stony Brook, Hopkins, Penn, Princeton, Hofstra. I mean, definitely winnable game. Jacksonville, can be a tough one. High Point obviously beat Carolina last year. Army beat Carolina last year. And then you get into ACC play. This is a scheduled Carolina team to me that looks, like they are expecting to make some noise. Like that's not like there's no like. I mean, Hofstra maybe you could say. There's some of these CAA teams, but those are teams that can on the wrong day, those teams can beat you. On the wrong day, Carolina's beating Mercer, with all respect, and Carolina's gonna be, there's no just racking up, just adding wins, on the schedule, just basically padding the total. This looks like a schedule to me of a team that kind of, thinks that, like you said, the Notre Dame, kind of looking at, just trying to smaller number of games, boosting the out of conference profile, playing Michigan. And from Michigan's perspective, I mean, we'll see. For Michigan, this was usually the Virginia spot. So I wonder is Virginia's schedule out? Not yet. So I'm curious for Michigan if they're playing them as well. Because if it is, I mean, that's Michigan's really, locking the schedule up because they play Notre Dame too. They usually play Notre Dame out of conference. But, if not, it's a swap. That's still a solid game. But it's a definitely improved non-conference schedule for the Tar Heels.
Jake, there's one game on their schedule I'm definitely have my eye on. And as you mentioned, it is the Hopkins game at Baltimore on February 22nd. Jake, I did some research before this pod, This game has been a bugaboo for me for a little bit, but I'm just going to give you some things that have happened since Hopkins' last win, which was on April 1st, 2006. Not like I'm counting or anything, but 6,841 days have passed since Hopkins last beat North Carolina at home. The number one movie at the time that Hopkins last beat North Carolina home, Ice Age, The Meltdown. Number one song in America on Billboard 100, So Sick by Neo. The richest person in the world and the U.S. at the time, Bill Gates with a measly 50 bill. The iPhone was not invented yet. It was in 2007. Tesla, 2008. Prominent celebrities born after April 1st, JoJo Siwa, Millie Bobby Brown. They were not even born. JoJo was born like a month and a half later. Millie Bobby Brown was literally born almost a year later, February 19th. Political longevity. 75 members of Congress who are in office in April 1st, 2006 are still there. And that's not counting our president, Joe Biden, who was obviously in office back in 2006, senator. 192 countries at the time in 2006. South Sudan in 2011 gave it to 193. Twitter wasn't invented, but Instagram wasn't invented until then. And since April 1st, 2006, roughly 115,000, 120,000 students have graduated from Hopkins. These are the cities with the similar population size. So Lansing, Michigan, St. Malo, France, and Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So essentially, all the alums who have not seen Hopkins are about the size of a small to mid-tier city in America or France. And just a little bit more fun. These were these actors and actresses' first movie. It was after 2006. So Jennifer Lawson had her first movie in 2008. That was Garden Party. Florence Pugh made her debut in 2014. Michael B. Jordan, first movie 2013. Timothy Chalamet, 2014. Tom Holland, first film The Impossible, 2012, and Lakeith Stanfield, short term or small film in 2013. So all these people they didn't even do their first. But large stars that we know and love didn't even have their first film at the time that Hopkins had last beaten North Carolina. So this is things have changed as society in the world that a great deal since Hopkins last. George Bush was still in office. I'm just thinking about what life was like in 2006. It's just a quaint period of time to where we are now. But yeah, that's what Hopkins is facing against Joe the Boss Bresci, who essentially owns like a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom brownstone in Baltimore. Right off of Charles Street by the stadium.
You just know they're going to do that whole. They're going to write the piece, but I'm going to like the restaurant.
It's just They just welcome him like just with open. It's like those gangster, the Godfather, where someone like sees the Don is like, oh my God, Don Joe, you have your table here. They got the chicken palm already cooked in, it's just the team is there. Just people just giving him oranges in the street just out of respect. It's just he's beloved, I'm sure, in Baltimore, especially in like Little Italy. So yeah, it's just amazing. Just like Hopkins has won national championships, gone to Final Four, not that many since 2006. But we had a little bit of run, late, peak Petro there in the 2015 run. But it's almost as bad as the Virginia Duke thing. And that one's just like they just always beat Duke, regardless if it's at Virginia, or Duke always beats Virginia, regardless if it's at Durham or Charlottesville. So it's not as ignominious as that streak, but it's up there. It's an undignified streak that I would love to see end this year, Jake. So yeah, it's not like I think about it a lot or anything. So
yeah, definitely. It was the first thing you brought up when Adam mentioned it in our group chat. The crazy thing is if you go from Hopkins' record in Chapel Hill at this time, it's not too bad.
No.
I don't think they have a winning record. But actually, I'm looking at it.
They got 3 of the last 4.
3 actually
at the Hill.
In fact, I'm actually looking at it's 4-5. So Hopkins is 4-5 since 2007 in Chapel Hill. And they are over since 2008. So they're 4. Actually, if you go since 2009, they'd be 4-4.
I think one of those is the Meadowlands game, though.
Oh, is one of them?
Yeah, that the 2 11 and 2012. Hopkins won one of them. They were considered the away team there. That's the one they won. But yeah, 2017 they won at Chapel Hill. 2019 they won at Chapel Hill. They lost in 2022, and then they won last year at Chapel Hill. So I mean, I'm with you. Respectable at the Hill, but just embarrassing at home.
They played 2011. Yeah, so they won 2024. They lost 2022. They won 2019. That'd be 2-1. They won 2017. That'd be 3-1. They lost 2015. So that'd be 3-2. They lost 2013. That'd be 3-3. 2011. So they won. So since 2009, they'd be 3-4, and then 3-5. Yeah.
And before that, it was just like a run. Hopkins didn't lose the game from 1995 through 2006, regardless of the venue. So that was obviously
from what 95 you said?
Yeah, they own Carolina.
I mean, that was 95 to 06. I mean, Carolina that's kind of the nadir of Carolina. Yeah,
that's a dark
as a program. Yeah. So yeah, certainly pretty.
It does feel like if there's a year that's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's got to be this year. I mean, Joe's got a 3-year deal, right? This is the middle of that 3-year deal. I think if he's going to make a push, this is going to be the year to push. The year to show, hey, I'm your long-term plan.
Oh yeah,
this is the year you got to do.
If it doesn't happen this year, ACC is wide open. I mean, again, and I say that I was one kind of like ACC being wide open is like a relative thing. Is like, Notre Dame's still very good. They don't Syracuse is going to be really good. Virginia's like Lars ain't going, he ain't going golfing this spring, like, so, and Dino didn't retire. It's like it's still hard, not just by no means, it's not not an easy, league by any means. But yes, it's compared to the last couple of years where they were, I mean, at least if you look at the ACC, the last 2 years was a terrible league to be young in. When you look at Notre Dame, especially, and Virginia, and Duke to degrees as well, Carolina in 2024, you had, I mean, they had some experience as well, but you got, Duffy coming back. Hopefully should be, pretty healthy. Dom Petro coming off his first year playing. Matan he was a sophomore. Defensive end. They had some, guys who are, going to be, still plenty of playing experience. They had the Bertie Wambach, who platooned, who was terrific as a freshman at the dot, platooned with Andrew Tyrer. So, and then 2023 was a bit more of an experienced group. And that was the year I think that was kind of more, just disappointing, was they went heavy in the portal that year and it just got them nothing. But last year, yeah, it was a tough year to be young. The question is, can these guys take leap? I mean, that's kind of what we always talk about. Can the guys, take the leaps? Because once you get past Duffy and Petro, and really once you get past Duffy and Petro, because McGovern's, graduating, your next leading scorer is James Matan with 17 points. So you're requiring, there is a certain degree of leap of faith there. But is the talent on the roster? Certainly. And is, the league more, and look, they will have, I think, and this is kind of the Syracuse, I think certainly what kind of gives them confidence, there will be they will have more experience while everyone else is getting a little younger. Which kind of gives you some optimism. But that's I think, but yeah, if it doesn't happen, yeah, I think there is kind of, look, I mean, he's not getting fired, but I do think the 3-year deal was, as we talked about, was interesting. And it does kind of leave you asking, if, when is it going to happen? That will kind of be, and the whispers, the word has kind of peaked up, people were like a year late on it, in comparison to when the contract situation kind of came up. But this past spring, I mean, there were a lot of people who were like, what the heck is going on there?
There was a lot of Twitter chatter.
Yeah, there was a lot of chatter. And so I certainly, for the first time really in his tenure, so I think, it's going to be an intriguing year.
He kind of had a whiff of it post title, where there was 3 or 4 years, and then they got the Final Four run, which definitely kind of been eating out on that for a little while since. But besides that Final Four run, it's not been that great since 2016. Just as being objective, their results, it's a lot of 500 results there.
No, yeah, I mean, it's 1 year. Now, granted, 2020, they probably,
that was, I think, yeah, they did kind of give them that because they were essentially number one right around then.
All right, I've got just a couple more topics to hit here. This was probably one of the, bigger, bigger, news, I guess, from the ACC. But, the ACC, the last 2 years, has had a lot of, I guess, bigger, bigger news. I think, one of the, bigger news, I guess, from the ACC. But, the ACC, the last 2 years, has had a lot of, I guess, bigger, bigger news. I think, one of the, maybe news items since we have been out. There was, I think, one or two others, but I think we kind of already talked about it. But it's a down the line news item. Yale's Chris Lyons and Leo Johnson will be transferring to Maryland in 2026. So we've kind of seen this this sort of move in the past. I mean, or like especially from Yale. Kind of like the pre-transfer out of the Ivy League. Johnson and Lyons obviously were a big part of Yale's offense 2 seasons ago in 2022 or 23 rather. When they, Chris Lyons put up 62 goals in 2023 with the Bulldogs, and Leo Johnson had 40 goals and 22 assists when they formed arguably the top attack unit in the country with Matt Brandow, and they formed, in their freshman seasons, another, again with Brandow in 2022, a very, very potent attack unit, kind of, getting, kickstarting Yale back from the, Ivy League's layoff. So they've kind of, had a wayward, kind of college career. Of course, they were injured. They missed all of, last season due to injury. The Bulldogs still obviously have Brandow, who put up a monster season, capping off his historic career, but they missed the NCAA tournament. Yale will be very happy to have them back in 2025, fully healthy, to try and make a push to return to the NCAA tournament. But kind of taking a page out of, sort of the offensive page out of Chris Fake and Brian Tevlin's playbook from a couple years ago, when those two went to Notre Dame. They will be going to Maryland in 2026, and a pretty intriguing move. Maryland figured to have, a pretty, stacked kind of cupboard in term potentially at the attack spot in 2026. If you consider Eric Spanos could leave after this year. He redshirted in 2022, so this this will be like his fourth year in school, he could choose to move on, but he'll have another year of eligibility. Braden Erksel was a freshman in 2023, so he has his fourth year will be 2026. Granted, I think my gut feeling is they're going to keep him at the midfield the way they did at the end of last year. But the Terps have some incoming big time freshmen coming at the attack spot. Spencer Ford's one coming in this year, who's a super highly touted recruit. And then Matt Higgins, I know, is coming in the 2026 class, who I know the Maryland staff is very, very high on. Probably one of the bigger kind of splashes I guess Maryland has made in the transfer portal in a good while. They've made definitely some moves and been active. They were quite active this past offseason. One of the more active ones. But this is one of the more probably since I guess you could say the 2022 offseason.
That was the last pop, I think.
Yeah, when I got Keegan Khan, and those guys, Jonathan Donville. This is they've made moves, but this is a pretty significant move, and it's look, these are two guys who especially with how they play in conjunction together. You expect to see on the field. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but a pretty significant move, looking towards the, future for the Terps.
Transfers are destroying the game, Jake. No, nah, I mean, shout out to Chris and Leo. Like, good on them. Maryland, that's kind of was a thing for a little, like a good part of like early to mid Tillman peak, where he was able to always get these like big time like contributors, maybe one or two, but like in the off season, like we kind of always joke around that the 2021 Virginia team kind of not broke Tillman, but it was just like I'm just getting everybody that I can get. It's just like whatever needed to be done to beat the Cavs, and that's why I always admire Tillman. Like he's not so wedded to like his system, his I don't want to say his players because it make it sound disposable, but like, his scheme, if something happened last year, and last year was arguably their worst year, and they still made the title game, so it's like, that's the kind of hunger I want. I'm not saying that Milliman doesn't have it, but like, that's what I want from my guys is like, it's not like, he's like, hey man, we had our worst season. We still made the tournament. Like my system works. This isn't going to be for another year or so, but like, he's always looking towards the future. He's always trying to make the product better. Like that's why he's the best out there in all respect to Lars and Corrigan. And Dano to an extent, like I still just see Tillman at the top of the mountain in terms of just like the relentlessness of like always kind of being there. Like that's what, Notre Dame's obviously now has the time in the spotlight, but nobody's had that consistency for the 10 years. Lawrence hasn't been at Virginia as long as Tillman had. Dano has had similar success, but there's been a lot of stops at the Final Four, not getting to the title game as often as Tillman has. So like maybe not have the record that maybe he would want in the championship game, but it uses 2-7 now there or 2-8.
I
feel like that's right.
7 is, I think,
2-7. Yeah, it's right around there.
6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah. So, but again, the North Carolina game, one call the other way. The UVA game that goes in overtime. What happens? That could just easily have flipped to a 4-4 record or so in the title game, and then he would be like the one with the most titles. Active coaches. But at any point, just like he's always looking to better his team and kind of like wherever that means, like changing it up mid-season, moving players around, or just tinkering in the offseason and getting transfers. Like Tillman's just like a constant worker and always trying to improve. And, that's why people want to come there, because they know if you go to Maryland, you're going to have a good shot of not just, making the tournament or being on the national stage, but consistently getting to the Final Four and the title game. And, at this level, for lacrosse, sorry, that he's playing at the highest level. So, I can understand why Chris and Leo want to go there. So there's a lot of points, sure they're going to have a stellar season at Yale for the last year, but really would be excited to see what they look like in terms of red and black and white. Just especially playing with that offense. Maybe I don't think we'll ever see something like the 2022 offense again. And not saying like to put any pressure on there, but those are two big time players coming over. We're going to probably have monster years this year, so it may be, as you noted, a full cupboard, but as Marlo always says, that's one of those good problems. If you have too many good players, he'll figure out a way to get them on the field. But as a Hopkins fan, I hope Milliman's got something. We got Chase last season, which was a great addition, and Melendez as well. So he's also active in the offseason transfer market. But this is two huge signings. In the near future, not immediate future, but the still key. It's just like it's getting a top 15. 2 top 15 recruits, added to your, they're going to only play for you one season, but that's going to make that incoming class that much stronger going into 2026.
Yeah, I think it's it's more it's kind of the cutting edge, that you kind of expect a little bit, kind of that had been seen in the past, or like they had the reputation, that maybe hadn't quite been seen the last couple of years. Or potentially. I mean, perhaps just they hadn't quite gotten some of the. And there were definitely some guys that they wanted. That they just didn't get. Which look, that happens. That's just part of the nature of the game. But it's more in lines to what we expect. I think it is probably response as well to the the offense we've seen over the last couple of years. Look, if some of these young guys and the guys in the roster can can hit and have their find a spot in the lineup, fantastic. But if not, these are two proven commodities. And as we've seen also with their offense and the way they've run it over the last couple of years, they're not they're going to get the 6 best guys on the field. So, if some of these guys attack, like you talk about Spanos, or if, a guy like, Spencer Ford is a freshman, if they come on and they play well, they'll play. They will find a way. They're not going to be beholden to, position or whatever. They'll play. But the 6 best guys are, they'll.
And it increases your floor. Even if they don't play, they're going to make whoever actually does get to be the one or the starting attack even better, because they're just going to push that, competition and, iron sharpens iron, that type of thing. There's going to be, you're going to have two. I don't know where Chris and Leo are going to fall in the All-America race, but, they're anywhere from honorable mention to 3rd team. I could see that. Even potentially even higher, especially for Lions. And then they're coming into your team. So even maybe they, don't play every minute of every game, but they're going to improve whoever is starting if they're not starting. And, that's maybe one of the most lethal extra man attacks you're going to have if you're going to be able to just throw these two guys out there.
They're gonna they're gonna start. They're these two guys, they're guys, they'll be on the field. It's who else is probably good enough to be,
with them.
Look, there's certain guys, you just kind of know, that's the thing with somebody look, I mean, he plays the guys who, he plays the best guys, but you can kind of, usually you can kind of tell just to, Khan and Donville, were those guys were going to start. They were in there to start. I mean, the Donville one was they had they had gotten him the year before. That was done a long time, and they wanted him badly. And it's this one, being done a long time in advance, and of course, look, the schools that wanted these guys kind of tells you that.
If you go back to what we were talking about with college football, I mean, maybe I'm not the best Hopkins alum, but I'm fine with rental players. I think you're fine.
Look, we've had this discussion. We've had this discussion for 4.5 years at this point. It's just gonna be what it's gonna be. And granted, look, it's happening. I mean, this is a weird situation because you've got two guys who are lost a year. If these guys had played in, you're talking these guys wouldn't be doing this if they hadn't, these guys aren't even we're not even talking COVID babies necessarily. They've just lost their 2024, so, I mean, it's just kind of, they might be, I think COVID, were they COVID freshmen in were they guys who were freshmen in 2021?
I can see that. Didn't a bunch of young guys withdraw to keep that extra year or something?
So Johnson was it says on the LS Johnson was a freshman in 2022. So, but I guess in this case, I mean, I figured I think they probably could have gotten an injury waiver, but I remember Pennell, but Pennell played. I remember Pennell got hurt in the season. I don't know if that's it, but either way, they would have been grad students last year. So nonetheless, they're not even a COVID case at this point. They're just they got hurt. This will be their 3rd year. So look, it is what it is. The sport is what it is at this point. Yeah.
I was openly advocating Jeff T to come to Hopkins.
I remember.
Come home.
Last one we got. This was a question from a good pal over at One Foot Down, Drew Brennan. He asked our thoughts on the IL is doing their annual top 50 rundown. Top 50 players, men's, men's and women's. But I think they're the men's right now. Men's players for 2025. 10 through 1 is tomorrow. That they are going to release. They dropped 20 through 11 today, so they've been doing this all week. Just had a bit of a look at it in preparation for the show. I don't have a lot. I mean, I think the names that aren't in there, that like will be like the top 10. Like I think the ones that will be there are obviously the sort of correct names. CJ Kirst, obviously, Chris Kavanaugh. Those are pretty, kind of slam dunk kind of selections, to be in the top 10. Spallini, in there as well. So I don't think anyone, who is probably going to be in the top 10 is a necessarily bad, or like I'd say, probably shouldn't be, in there. There's a couple that I kind of look at and just from kind of scanning it, maybe, so they're, I think just from kind of reading this is sort of their prediction of like who's going to be the 50 best players in 2025. So I think it's kind of like a future projecting deal. Like I don't think it's not just primarily, or solely based on like past production. But so I think that's worth taking into account. So like Ben Ware at 20 for Virginia. I would honestly maybe consider having Ben Ware in the top 10. Like, I mean, Ben Ware is just they're not like, I mean, the blurb here they included kind of says it all. He had 13 points, 7 caused turnovers, and no non-face-off guy had more ground balls. That's kind of I just don't think like any long pole being put ahead of him. I mean, like in the middle of the field. I mean, like Will Donovan for Notre Dame. Will Donovan Notre Dame is a hell of a player. He's better than Ben Ware. I don't know. Scott Smith better than Ben Ware. And they're different players. Like Smith's more of like a true just classic lockdown defender, but like Ben Ware impacts the game like to a crazy degree. I think that feels a little low for me.
I almost think he was more of a contributor to UVA beating Hopkins last year than Mabe. And I thought Mabe was dynamite like that game. Definitely picked up the McMillan, right? He was just everywhere. He was just a constant nuisance. Got every single ground ball out there. Just tough player. Like if I was a UVA fan, I never worried with him holding the rock. It wasn't like he couldn't wait to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like he was cool, calm, and composed out there. Like he was very frustrating too, like because he's such a good player, but he just happened to have such a great game against Hopkins. I just didn't appreciate that part. But he's those kind of players that are really different. The attackman and to an extent, like a star defenseman, get a lot of the accolades. But yeah, guys like Ware are like crucial for getting those possessions. He's the person who had the ball, maybe two players before the actual goal. I mean, he's the one who got it up over the midfield that then led to the person getting assists because they were able to feed someone for the goal. So he's always like, I think, gave hockey assists. I bet his numbers would get even higher next year as compared to this year. But I hear you. Like, I got putting him top 15. I wouldn't blink. Could even put him in top 10. I don't know who they're going to put in top 10 that would like be glaring that we could. Where it could be right up there, just because like it's probably going to be some of the biggest names. But I could definitely have no problem with him in top 15, even top 10.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I mean, I think there's guys. There's guys in the top 10. I think. I mean, look, they're gonna be good players. Like I would, but there's guys in the top 10. I think I would put him over. Millen's a good shot. Like he played a great. I mean, he played a terrific game against Hopkins. And certainly, I think you kind of like have a feeling that he's going to break out. But if we're kind of going off, like if we're looking at freshmen, like he wasn't better than Owen Duffy last year.
And that's the thing. Again,
now
I'm not sour grapes because he has such a good guess, but like dude got Connor taking an overwhelming amount of attention. That kind of what Connor did. Like maybe this is undercutting my own argument because Connor had such a stellar freshman year, but that team was so stacked that you wondered if would he be able to do that with everybody's gone. But
it was
a different player.
It was, but also like by the time we got to the tournament, Connor teams put their best defender on Connor.
You were like, why is this guy coming off the bench? So it was like better, yeah.
Like by the time the tournament came around, like Connor was like, teams put their like Nick Grill covered Connor Schellenberger in the championship, and I mean it's always funny. I go back and like if you ask John Tillman hindsight, I always wondered like hindsight, Ajax Zapatello was Maryland's number 3 defender.
Freshman on freshman that year, just let him get after it.
Would you rather just put Ajax on him in hindsight? But like Connor was, yes, he was, like he ran out of the midfield. It's like by the time the tournament came around, like what was that Georgetown game? Yeah. He scored like 6 goals.
It was like the video games where you just have like Randy Moss in the early Madden years were just so much faster than everyone. It was just unfair. Like it didn't. But yeah, again, maybe Millen goes that route. Maybe he is the next Connor. But that's just, I can hear you say like, that you could maybe argue some other freshmen had as good a season with less, with actually more pressure on them because they were more fully. I think Owen was like carrying that North Carolina team, so he probably was getting the number 1 defenseman every game as opposed to maybe getting probably the 3rd defenseman, right? Because Connor's up and getting your number 1.
And then Cormier, sort of.
So, he's more of a dunker and finisher, but he's still going to get attention with his
got
size.
Midfield. I mean, you got Schutz in there times 2. You had to count for, but I mean Duffy. The thing is, he didn't play in the fall, so you have to count the injury. But I even think like if you're also looking at just last year, but also projecting out, and it and you never want to take scrimmage, word from the fall, things like that. But like that Georgetown UVA game they played in they played in fall ball. The word of that game was like the best player on the field was Ty Banks for Georgetown, I think he was, kind of like 26 or something here. So, he's a guy who talk defender. Like, I think he could certainly be, in the mix for, I mean, first team all defenders. I mean, you got two seniors in Lavelle and Smith, who seniors are kind of a lock, and then you got Sean Light, Notre Dame. So it's kind of hard to look past those three, but I think Ty Banks could really make a strong climb or push this year. I think it also depends, how does Virginia utilize Ben Ware? Because like with Kastner gone, who do they kind of put as their number close defense? Do they push him back a little bit? But yeah, I think Ty Banks is one to watch out for. Millen was kind of the one I looked at as a little, I'm not quite sure. Also maybe along defensively, maybe a bit too. Richard Checo at Lehigh. He was kind of in the high 30s. I mean that he was just incredible college turnovers numbers. A beast of a player. So overall, I mean, again, they got the they got the main guys. They got the main guys right. I would say. But if there are just one or two kind of things I would point out, those might be it.
I think those are more than fair.
All right, Safe. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, Jake, this is great. Shout out to StreamYard, sorry. Loving this new layout. Yeah, I'm excited for the season. Should be a good time for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we'll pretty soon here we'll be trying to put together these conference previews. I was thinking while we were doing this, these realignments again. It's just changing these conferences again. Gonna have to go find that that link Chris tweets out with all the
the Matrix.
I've got to find the Matrix again because it feels like it changes every dang year.
And Jake, you were absolutely right with the Owen and McCabe, sorry, comparison. 18 games, 66 total points for Millen, and 12 games and 54 points for Owen, with essentially almost a full point per game more than Millen. So yeah, I mean, Owen was the only freshman in the top 20. I mean, there's only really two freshmen in the top 50, and McCabe was the other one. But yeah, Owen had a big time.
If Duffy's healthy, I think he's the, he was, just an obvious, he was a different cut. I think, if he's fully healthy, I mean, he's a superstar. I think. That's and obviously look, Carolina as a team, that's obviously a factor, but and especially on that, and that Carolina, there were times with that Carolina offense, it was like, what is happening? And but he just it didn't matter, yeah, he's a special, he's a special talent, into what he's capable of. But I think also just, I mean, looking at the list, it was, to me, I think definitely there's even guys, in the top 10, I think Kirst is a pretty, I do have kind of feel like Kirst in his senior year, can he kind of if he could just get to that, kind of similar along the lines, kind of what Bernhardt did, if he could kind of put it all together. Because I think he's been incredible since he was a freshman, but it always feels like there's five, a little bit more, especially as a Dodger, he's been the best Dodger since, in the country for a while now. But can he get as a passer? Can he find that, as he's a good passer, I'm not doing the whole Matt Rambo bit, but when teams really make him pass, and really try and focus on to make him hit the extra guy. Can he kind of just find that that anticipatoriness, to kind of just the eyes in the back of your head, it's not, it's the quality, to make a sort of reverse comparison, Pat Spencer always had that, Like that's what Pat Spencer was always a remarkable passer. From just like, but when Pat Spencer, like his senior year, basically really like he grew into his body and like just became like unstoppable dodging the ball too. And like when Pat was like he could pass the ball over you, but also like when he decided that he could just put his body into you and like take you to the rack too, it was like, oh, okay, well it's over. That's kind of like with Crosse is like, okay, like I know he can run by you, like, but can he get it to where like even if you send the extra guy, it doesn't matter. He's already seen the pass. Like he's the one guy who I think like he's a special talent. Like a lot of these other guys, like they're great. I mean, they're great players. Don't they're great talent. And like I think defensively too. Like even some of the great defenders. Like defense feels like there's feels like it could be like things tilt back towards the defense because I think there's a lot of like young talent and older talent. Like attackmen, I think it feels kind of evident that like we've graduated a like pretty ridiculous group of attackmen these last couple of years, and especially this past year. So it's the talent, like there's great players in the game, but it's like it was what we saw the last 4 to 5 years was pretty special, and it might be a year or two before we get something kind of like a I mean it'll be a while before we get something like that again, but kind of like some of these things, super superstars again.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out. And that's the thing,
Absolutely.
Every 3 or 4 years, is one wave goes, another wave coming in, and it's just exciting. Going to see.
We keep talking about. We really get the feeling it's going to be a wide open season. We kind of been pushing that for a couple of years, and it hasn't quite panned. And to be fair, I mean, 2023.
We were right on the money last year. What was it? 8 teams were number one for.
I mean, 2023 was not. I mean, 2023 we kind of thought maybe it could have been, but I mean, it kind of would. But 2024 outside of Notre Dame, was like, 2024 was like, Notre Dame was, and heck, I mean, in a weird way, that's the fascinating thing about this last couple of years is like, 2022, I guess, was sort of like that as well, Like what if you take Maryland out of 22 and Notre Dame out of 24? It's like, and I guess, and that might be what next year is like, we've taken, the super team out of it. And 2023 was maybe like the closest thing to like really just like a real collection of like, several top notch. You had those 3 AC teams. Penn State almost beat Duke in the Final Four, and 21 as well. I mean, 21 was, that was, there might not have been a year with as much talent in the sport as 21. And Ivy didn't even play.
Entire conference, near power conference didn't even play that year.
So, but yeah, it really does feel like next year gonna be a wide open year.
Jacob, wouldn't want to chronicle it with anybody else aside from you and our boy Rye.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you for those who joined us. We're looking forward to doing more of these in the future. We'll be back on the mics here with you soon. It is very, very cold outside. Winter has hit, certainly here down the East Coast. So make sure you grab yourself, a warm beverage of some kind. Stay cool, stay hydrated. Becky Lynch for president. Take care. See you down the road.
See you out there.